Alright, today we're going to actually write the equations of the parallel and perpendicular lines instead of just finding out whether they are parallel or perpendicular. If you'll recall, yesterday we talked about how parallel lines have the same slopes and perpendicular lines have opposite reciprocals or negative reciprocals. In order to write an equation, we need to be given a point and another line. We can solve for the slope of the given line by getting y by itself. So when it's in slope-intercept form, it is easy to detect that slope. It's in the m part. It's the y equals mx plus b. If parallel, we'll use the same slope, and if perpendicular, we'll make it the negative reciprocal. So this is just an extension of yesterday. So my first example here, it says that I'm going to be writing a line, or writing the equation of a line that's parallel to this given line. So the nice thing about this given line is that it is in slope-intercept form, so I know that the slope of this line is 1. So I'm going to simply write that the slope is 1. Using that slope of 1, I can now put it in point-slope form. Point-slope form would be y minus my y-coordinate equals my slope times x minus my x-coordinate. Now, we really should just be writing this as y plus 2 equals 1 times x minus 0. This is point-slope form. In order to put it into slope-intercept form, we have done that distributing before, so we'll do that again. This is y plus 2 equals 1x, 1 times 0 is 0. And then I'll subtract 2 from both sides, so I simply get the answer y equals x minus 2. This is the equation of the line in slope-intercept form. So I have two answers here, one in point-slope form, one in slope-intercept form. As you can see, they are parallel because they have the same slopes. Let's look at another example without the slope being given in that slope-intercept form. So we need to go ahead and solve for y. So when we do that, we get 2y equals negative 3x plus 1. Divide by 2 everywhere, we get negative 3 halves x plus 1 half. So the slope of my line is negative 3 halves. I'm going to write this in point slope form using the point that's given. Y minus my y coordinate is 1 equals 3 halves x minus my x coordinate. So there's my point slope form. And then I'll go ahead and put it in slope intercept form. So I'll distribute first. 3 halves x, 3 halves times 0 is 0. Add 1 to both sides. I get y equals 3 halves x plus 1. Let's do one more example of this kind, only because now I'm asked to write it in standard form as well. So the slope of this line happens to be 3/4, easily picked out because it's in y equals mx plus b form. That allows me to write it in point slope form. Y minus 8 equals my slope 3/4 times x minus my x coordinate of 1. So there's my point slope form. Taking it next step to slope intercept form, when I distribute, I get y minus 8 equals 3/4 x minus 3/4. Then we'll have to add 8 to both sides. Then we're going to have to add 8 to both sides. So I get y equals 3/4 x. Negative 3/4 plus 8, I'll go ahead and do that off to the side by making a common denominator. So I've got negative 3/4 plus, it'd be 32 over 4, that's 8. So that gives me 29 over 4. I went ahead and leave it as an improper fraction because the next step is to put it in standard form, which means I have to get rid of all my fractions. So I'm going to multiply every term times 4. So I'll get 4y equals 3x plus 29. My next step is to subtract 3x from both sides, which gives me negative 3x plus 4y equals 29. Now this is not standard form quite yet. I've got to make my final answer be 3x minus 4y equals negative 29. Remember, standard form cannot have a negative to start out with, so I changed all my signs. So here's standard form. This mess, I'm going to rewrite it as y equals 3/4 x plus 29/4 so that you can see that better, and that's slope-intercept form. And then this is my point-slope form. In my next example, I am now going to write my answer in so that it's perpendicular. In this problem, my slope is 1. The slope of the line perpendicular, I'm going to write that off to the side. The slope of my perpendicular line would be the negative reciprocal of that, which if I reciprocate 1 over 1, I get 1 over 1, but I just need to make it a negative instead. So I'll put it in point slope form first. Y minus my negative 2 equals negative 1 times x minus 8. Now to simplify this, it'd really just be y plus 2 equals negative 1 times x minus 8, or you could just put simply a negative in front of there. So there's point slope form. Slope-intercept form would start out by distributing my negative through, so I'd have a negative x, a negative times a negative is a positive 8. I'll subtract 2 from both sides, and I get y equals negative x plus 6. There's slope-intercept form. On this next one, I have to solve for y first, so I'll add 3x to both sides. Y equals 3x plus 1. So the slope of this given line is 3. The slope of the line perpendicular is the reciprocal of that, so I've got to reciprocate it, which would be 1/3. This was positive, now it's negative. So I'm going to be using the slope negative 1/3 and 2, 0 as my ordered pair. So I'd get y minus 0 equals negative 1/3 times x minus 2. That's point slope form. Slope-intercept form would be y minus 0 equals negative 1/3 x. Negative times negative is a positive, and that would be 2/3. And then y minus 0 is just y. So I end up with y equals negative 1/3 x plus 2/3. I have one more example I'm going to do only because I want to show you standard form again. And so in this problem, I have a slope of negative 1/3. So the slope of the line perpendicular would be a positive 3. When I reciprocate 1/3, I get 3, and it was negative, now it's positive. So point slope form would be y. Instead of putting minus a negative 4, we should be to the point where we can just put plus 4 equals 3 times x minus 1. There's my point slope form. Slope-intercept form would be y plus 4 equals, we're going to distribute the 3 through, 3x minus 3. And then we'll solve for y by subtracting by 4 on both sides. So y equals 3x minus 7. So here's slope-intercept form. Here's point slope form. We're going to take it one step further by making the standard form. We're going to subtract 3x from both sides. We get negative 3x plus y equals negative 7. And then the last thing I need to do is change all my signs so I have a positive for my x value. And so there's my standard form answer. We'll continue to work on that type in particular, standard form, because that's more difficult for many of you in class. So bring questions over the things that you've seen.